ask you, if you're not talking at the moment, if you would stay on mute, but feel free to unmute, ask questions, interact. Any comments that you have, we're happy to hear. And we'd like to make sure that this meets the needs that you guys have. And so feel free to jump in at any time with your comments. Just unmute, reach out. You're also welcome to put comments in the chat window. If you're not familiar with Teams, there's a little comment piece that's in the center of your screen when you rotate towards it, and you can just click on that and it will let you type in a comment, and Jessica and I will be monitoring that. So if you could go on to the first slide for me, Will. I just want to do a brief introduction for you about Breakpoint. Actually, I think, do you have the Breakpoint slide? There we go. Brief introduction for you about Breakpoint. I'm Judy Nichols. I'm the CEO of Breakpoint Technology. Joining us on this call in just a little bit will be Ed McGillis. He had a sick child at home, so he's running a few minutes late getting onto the call, which I'm sure you all are familiar with that. Breakpoint Technology focuses very heavily on helping you with business process as well as data management solutions. And you can see along the bottom there some of the different areas that we work within around integrated portal solutions, collaboration strategies, enterprise budgeting for university medical centers, workflow and forms automation, which is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, Microsoft 365 offerings, and then of course custom solutions. So we spend a lot of time working in the healthcare space. We work within other verticals as well. We're always happy to talk with you about any issues that you have going on, or any solutions that you're interested in that may not be an issue, but something that you wanted to use to take your enterprise forward into the future, particularly in the digital realm. So that's enough about us for today, because this commercial is not really what you came here for. So I'd like to turn it over at this point to Will Knowles, who is from InText, and he's going to be doing most of the demo work for us today. And I'm going to let Will do an introduction of himself for you. And again, encourage you to please speak up, interact, unmute yourself, because we want to make this as interactive and as valuable to you as possible. And I'm also going to mention to you quickly that at the end of this, we're going to have a survey, and from that survey, we're going to draw a winner that we can give out a gift card to Amazon for. So hope you will enjoy this. Go ahead, Will.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Judy. I appreciate it. And good morning to everyone on the call. I'm Will Knowles, technical evangelist here at InText. I have the extraordinary pleasure of serving as a technical evangelist on the western part of the US and Western Canada. Been with InText now for just over 2 years. But prior before that, I was actually a customer for 2 Fortune 500 companies, both in the healthcare industry and also the construction industry. So I've been using InText now since 2012. Just a fun, interesting fact about myself: when I am not evangelizing and traveling all over the world, I do enjoy designing beaded jewelry. So that is a passion of mine as well. So for today, I'm going to go back real quick, kind of lay down what the objective is and what we're hoping to accomplish while we're actually on this call today. We definitely want to provide you a great overview of the InText platform inside of the healthcare industry, right? Specifically, when you think about InText, for those that are aware and may not be aware, InText has really evolved from, being just that forms and workflow shop, right? There's so much evolution as it relates specifically to the platform. We actually operate from 3 kind of tiers, if you will. The first is going to be around process management. So being able to standardize your business processes in a collaborative work environment. So we'll walk through what that looks like, right? So before you can even dive into automation, like so many people love to do, which is good, you have to first understand the process. So in healthcare, when you think about patient intake informations, right? Or maybe billing information, all that great stuff that is inducive into the healthcare industry, we have to understand the process first. So therefore, when a person comes into the hospital or comes to fill out something, we actually are in compliance with that process. Next, we'll be diving into the process automation. So we will cover some of the old things to the platform and a lot of the new things as well. So when you think about forms, workflow, and mobile, those have all been in the very beginning when InText was founded in 2006. Since then, we have fully evolved and added in InText Sign powered by Adobe. From the process management standpoint, we have a tool what's known as ProMap, where everyone can come in and collaborate together and standardize their processes, similar to Visio, but a lot better than Visio, and you'll see why. And then, of course, we'll also touch on robotic process automation, which is one of the hottest and latest things in the market, right? I know people think of a robot and it's going to take over the world and take over your job. That is not the case here. This is really so that you can have more time back to do other things inside of your daily lives as well. So think about those things that are mundane and very labor intensive. Those are the things that you can program a bot to do, and you can just sit back and relax. Last but not least, we'll cover process optimization. So you cannot optimize what you do not measure, meaning if you want to improve on your business processes, you want to make them more streamlined, more effective, more efficient. How do you do so? We have an amazing thing to the platform known as InText Analytics, which I will showcase for you as well. You can actually see it briefly in the background right here. That's a little bit of InText Analytics, but we'll get to that here shortly as well. So without further ado, I know Judy mentioned if you have any questions, feel free to throw those at me. This is very, very informal, and we can collaborate together. So why are we here? When you think about where people are today, right? I know everyone talks about being digitalized and automation, but you will be amazed. There are still 68% of business processes that are manual to this day. What do I mean by manual? You either are filling it out in Excel, a piece of paper, faxing it in, printing it out, having to, do a wet signature instead of electronic signature. There are so many processes that are still in that phase today. A lot of these processes lack visibility into understanding exactly where they are, right, and how those should be completed and who's approved it, things like that. Maybe they're too hard to implement, right? Maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, someone wrote a heavy coded process that they thought was going to be automated, but it's very, very cumbersome, and nothing's changed since then, right? We have to evolve past this right here. And then last but not least is lacking the power, meaning that oftentimes we only focus on the simple processes, but fail to realize that a lot of the business processes, especially on the enterprise level, especially when we think about healthcare as well, are very much in this complex area, right? So we need to actually start moving and evolving past that. So as it relates to InText, as I mentioned about earlier, there are three different components to the platform. The first is going to be centered around process mapping and understanding your business processes, where you can manage those effectively and efficiently using ProMap. Then once you have your processes fully documented accordingly, everything's looking good, then you can actually start to dive into the process automation space of the world. This will allow you to really start to move into things and get them more digitalized and more automated as well. So as you guys see here, InText was very much known for forms and mobile and workflow as well. We've added in document generation, where you can actually create this beautiful templates just by using a document tagger. And when the workflow instance runs, it's going to pre-populate that template. So for example, if perhaps maybe you wanted someone to enter something in on an iPad, and then you wanted to actually give them an electronic copy of that emailed to them, you can certainly do so, right? Just by using document generation, it can populate those variables and send it out to PDF for that person to have at their email address. Last but not least will be robotic process automation. We will see that live information, and you'll understand a little bit more about what that looks like as well. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the last will be InText Analytics, so process optimization. So you have all the data. What can I do with that data? Does it tell me if my processes are performing and are underperforming? Does it tell me if a person, from a patient collections system record, do they owe us money or are they paid in full? All that great stuff as well. You can actually use InText Analytics to measure that for you. When you think about InText from a department and business systems perspective, we are spread out so far, right? With over 8,500 customers and mounting and climbing to this day to close to 9,000. We are just about in every single industry, and I kid you not. And as I mentioned about earlier, I can definitely relate, having worked in the healthcare industry and also the construction industry, using InText and automating many business processes. Over here to the right-hand side, you can see where we have a lot of great integrations with business ecosystems and ERP systems, such as Microsoft, which is our number one. We have SharePoint, Salesforce, Box, Salesforce, Zillow, Zendesk, so many, ServiceNow, and so many more that are on the way that I can't mention just yet until everything is finalized. Now, from an industry perspective, right, we are also in everything that you could think of as well. So specifically as it relates to healthcare, when you think about physician contracting, patient onboarding, right? Patient comes in. I remember last December, I broke my arm, and actually November, and I had to go in and I manually filling out these forms. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, could any of this be like more automated, right? All this patient onboarding, right? And here I am with just one arm and the other one like barely being able to move. So I remember this specifically, and it's very, very painful. Medical asset service, all that great stuff as well. This is where InText can spread out from the industry side. This is just a brief glance at all of our customers. This, of course, will focus a little bit on kind of those specific industries. So government, healthcare, you guys do see a lot of those amazing customers that we love and support. I'm very, very grateful for as well. And now for the demonstration. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take it from the essence of actually the three components to the platform. So as I mentioned about earlier, it all starts with mapping out your business processes effectively and efficiently. We have an amazing tool known as ProMap, where you can actually come in here and map out your processes. So when you think about from a healthcare perspective, right, you have to definitely be in SOX compliance and GDRP regulated, all this great stuff that is mounting on so many organizations, especially healthcare, right? We think about patient financial records and patient sensitive records and confidentiality. We want to make sure that we have those processes documented. So when the auditors do come in, and I come from an auditor background, serving before, you want to make sure that you are in compliance from that perspective. So here is ProMap. It's a great tool where everyone can actually come in, collaborate on a process, which is very different from Visio, because Visio is more individual specific. Then I do my piece, I send it off to Nick, and I send it off to Judy. And before I get it back, I don't know what version we're on. I don't know what's been modified. ProMap keeps track of all of that for you to include the version control. I'll just cover the top ribbon. I won't click in those just from a time perspective, but the top one will show you all the processes that you're currently involved in, meaning you are the subject matter expert or you are the process owner as well. And then, of course, we do have the documents. So this would be documents and correspondence that could support that process. What I mean by that is if you think about, oh, yes, go ahead. Oh, sorry, that I had a question. When you think about that, when you think about documents, right, think about the patient onboarding form that a person fills out. It could actually be an InText form that a person fills out. We could attach that to the process so that if a person is coming on board and they're going to be joining the patient, patient intake team, they'll be able to actually understand a little bit more about that process and understand where that form, resides and how they could easily just come in here and click on the form and start filling it out for the patient as well. Then, of course, we'll get into the automate button here soon because a lot of great things happen there. The My Dashboard screen will actually give you a great overview. So if I am the process owner, and let's say Judy is the process expert, if Judy makes a modification to the process, one, I will be notified of the modification and I have to come in and review it. That supports whether it's a change to the process and or a document or any correspondent that is related within ProMap as well. So all of that is kept track for you to include the auditing history as well. Next, we have risk. So for every process, and I don't care how great the process is ran, there's always risk associated. Whether you do it via a heat map or you do a SWOT analysis, think about some of those things that could really be threatening a lot of your business processes, right? If you are really well connected to, let's say, the healthcare process, maybe it could be open heart surgery, what that process looks like, setting everything up beforehand, right? If you recognize a risk, maybe it could be that the utensils and the tools that the doctor uses are not fully sanitized. Maybe you recognize that as a risk. Go ahead and document that, right? And then what that will happen is as you document that, you have to give it a severity level. And then that will put it on a great heat map. Now, as you think about a heat map, as things are more moderate to catastrophic, they're going to be more in the red, right? Who doesn't want to be, I don't like to be too hot. I always like to be a little bit more on the cool side, so we want to stay in the green as well. Then we have improvements. So if anybody's on the call and comes from a continuous improvement CI background, guess what? We have something great in store for you as well. This is where you can actually identify improvements to the process and suggest ways in which we can be more streamlined and more effective as well. And last but not least will be training. This is something that oftentimes gets cuts from a lot of budgets, and I mean the actual employees suffer the most because of lack of training. This is very, very important, especially from the healthcare industry perspective. It's very important that everyone gets the adequate training that they need to be ready to go on the first day, rock and roll, know what to do during those critical emergency moments as well. So this is where you can identify our trainings and send those out to people via email, and they'll be added to their calendars as well. Now, what we're going to be doing specifically is we're going to focus on something that we all can relate to, and that's vendor onboarding. I will make this applicable and as much as possible to the healthcare industry, but even in healthcare, there are vendors that are used. For example, if you use a vendor for your needles and syringes, you might be using Beck& Dickinson. That might be your vendor of choice that you choose to do business with. There's a process for that. You can't just allow a vendor to come in and say, hey, okay, we'll use you. You have to follow a specific process. So we'll be walking through what that process looks like in a nutshell. So when I clicked on the vendor onboarding process, the first thing that you see here is the versioning. So what I mean by that is, as you think about someone making modifications and those modifications being approved, it will keep track of all the versioning for you as well. And then of course you have the My Dashboard, which will show you all the audit history. I'm going to click on the Edit tab, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how we built out this process map, which is really, really cool. Okay, it doesn't say I have the exact rights, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and I'll walk through everything. They just set up my demo environment, so pardon me on that one. But as it relates to these specific steps, the first thing that you're going to see is this is what's known as add an activity. So add an activity is really what's a major step to the process. So if you want to think about it from this perspective, you can actually say, hey, you know what? The vendor job associated task will be a major step. Or the patient comes into the hospital, but before we can do anything, we need to actually have them fill out patient intake information systems. So we can actually identify that as a major step. Then we can identify who's going to be responsible for completing this step. It could be a manager, could be the intake specialist, whatever it could be. We want to make sure that we identify that person in a role. So you can actually add new roles, things like that as well. Then what I can come over here and do is assign a task to that person who's going to complete that step. So as you see here, those will be listed in A through Z. And then, of course, major steps are listed 1 through 10. Now, you can go past 10. The best practice in ProMap is not to exceed past 10. And if, in fact, you are, you might want to think about breaking that process into a sub-process to fully support this business process in a nutshell. And then as you see here, I do have a total of 8 different steps with a few different tasks listed here as well. And then of course, I'll go over here to the map, which will give you a great overview of how this actually looks. So you can see how each different step has what's known either as an SLA or a KPI that has to be met. So that's very important, especially if you want to be the leading industry, especially in healthcare, whether you're a hospital, a clinic, or what have emergency care clinic or something like that. You want to make sure that you are operating with KPIs and SLAs. So as you see here, the person the vendor identified has 5 minutes, and then we need to submit that form. We have 30 minutes to submit that form. This is all in the manager level. And then of course, I have a business analyst who will have to make a decision on a few things as well. And then of course, somebody in finance, and of course, somebody in legal as well. And then of course, once you have this great map fully done, there's a few things that you could do that are really, really amazing. I could provide feedback to this process, meaning I can give good feedback, bad feedback, ways to make it more effective and efficient. So for anybody that's a Lean Six Sigma or Kaizen guru, things like that, we want to make sure that we get their feedback because they would definitely know and identify those as well. I can make this as one of my favorites, meaning when I'm on the home screen, I can easily access this process. And I can also share out this process via a link, or I can actually share it out via email as well. And then this will, once you have your process fully documented, right? Things are looking good and everybody agrees off on the process and everybody says, yes, this is the process. We will be in compliance. We are going to go forward with this process. Guess what? Now you can actually dive into process automation, right? You will understand the process. Let's move on to the next step. So we have this great automate button. We are actually in the process of using this automate button to bring us into the next evolution of InText, which is the process automation phase. And it's going to be using artificial intelligence. So that will be going live in the next few weeks, I believe. So I'm super excited about that. But what I mean by that, it's going to take all of these steps that are listed here accordingly. And when I click on automate, it's then going to automate that inside of our cloud offering, which is also available and will be available in 365. And so when I click on that, it will then actually bring me into the automation part of things. So this is what workflow looks like. So when you want to create a workflow on the back end, this is exactly what that will look like. You have your beautiful workflow canvas in the very center. So these are all the different actions that I've used over here to the left. We are drag and drop, low to no code. So if it's the vendor onboarding process or a patient intake system, or billing and collections, could be filing insurance claims, all that great stuff that supports healthcare. You want to make sure that you can actually use the different actions available over here to the left and easily put those onto the design canvas. Now that automate button will get you about 85 to 90% configured. So it will save you time, effort, and energy, so you don't have to do that on the workflow side. But the very first thing that you see is what is a start event. Now, the good thing about InText, for those that aren't aware, we have evolved from just living and breathing just on Microsoft, but we are really connected into any business ecosystem. So what I mean by that, we are very agnostic, right? So if you're say, hey, you know what, I use SharePoint occasionally, but we're more so a Salesforce shop, or we're more so a Box shop or a Google shop. Whatever it may be, Nintex can easily connect to that business ecosystem. So that's where the start event could be your connector, meaning that it could necessarily start off as a form, meaning a vendor form, patient intake form, or it could be anything that you want it to be. And I'll kind of show you just underneath the hood, and we'll see this in live formation here shortly, what our forms designer can do for you. So when I clicked on design a form and I chose Nintex as a form, the first thing that you do is that of course I want to make sure I add my logo, keeping intact with branding and customization. So of course, all you would have to do is enter the URL where that logo is, whether it be saved on the site assets, a marketing department, or you can always grab the logo also from Google as well. And so that's our Cephalo environment, which is our demo environment internally. I have a label there that shows me what form I'm filling out. So vendor onboarding, patient intake, billing and collections, whatever it is within healthcare that you need to have that form be, you can certainly do so. You want to make sure that you provide some sort of instructions. Nothing's worse than when you fill out a form and you think you know what to fill out and you think you might know what to complete, but it's always good to make sure that we set that standard at the very front of the form as well. And of course, this is the form, what that looks like. So we have a few things. We have rules that are hiding a few fields, things like that. All this amazing stuff as well. Now, something that's really, really amazing. Suppose when I mentioned about a person actually coming in, and instead of having to fill out a patient intake form manually on a form, obviously I know that sometimes we need to capture a signature. Guess what? We can actually build in a signature. We do have that ability to do so. So if I come over here and preview this form, and I might want the patient to fill this out on a note tablet or something like that, they can actually come over here and sign off on the patient intake system, intake form. How cool is that? So I can sign that, hit done, and voila, it's captured that as my actual signature. I can store it as a text variable, which then I could use document generation and use this signature to actually be inputted onto that document as well. So super, super amazing. Any questions so far?
Hey, Will, this is Judy. I just wanted
Hey,
to
Judy.
mention real quick, you also have integration with Adobe Sign, right? Because I know
Yes.
that's something that a lot of our customers are starting to use.
Absolutely, yeah. I was definitely going to get to that on
Okay.
the workflow side. No, that's a great point you make. That's going to dive us into the workflow. Yeah, we definitely have Nintex Sign powered by Adobe, which we are so excited about. So we actually developed further enhanced this partnership. We've always had an integration with Adobe Sign, but we then started to start a partnership where we bought our own Nintex Sign powered by the Adobe engine. So we can actually use a few things to actually send things out for Nintex Sign powered by Adobe. As you guys can see here, I'm getting that signature via Nintex Sign powered by Adobe.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump you ahead. I just wanted to point that out because I know
Yeah.
that several times that, particularly in healthcare, you need to get specific signatures, and having something like Adobe Sign available works really well.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. It's actually very, very helpful. I am in love with Nintex Sign powered by Adobe. I've used it quite extensively for a lot of demos that I provide and POCs that I put together for a lot of customers as well. Yeah, great point there. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. So, yeah, so this is Nintex Sign powered by Adobe. You can easily get signatures, and you can also store signed documents. One of the latest things that we've actually released is the ability to, as you send out a document for a signature via InText powered by Adobe, you have the ability to set password protection. You can also do recapture. So once they sign it, you can send them back to wherever landing page that you so choose. So these are two amazing additions to the platform that we are offering inside of InText powered by Adobe. And that is on the workflow side. So as I mentioned earlier, there's so many integrations. As I mentioned, our latest one is ServiceNow, which came about around December of 2018. We are working on some other ones that I'm hoping will land this year that I can now then announce about, but those are actually in development. So we're super excited about that. The other thing I want to showcase for you on the automation space of things would be things such as, think about a process that is very labor intensive, where it's a lot of human interaction. You're spending about 20, 30 extra hours a week just to compile a report that you have to email out to the head of the healthcare provider or the healthcare clinic or hospital that you're at, right? So you're going through probably 10 Excel spreadsheets to condense into one, right? Very painful, very easy to make a mistake. So easy. We can actually help you out with that. So Nintex, in about, I believe it was March, acquired a company known as Foxtrot, which is now known as InText RPA, which when you think about it, RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation. Most people sometimes, the most common thing that I get asked lately is robotic process automation a replacement for workflow. Absolutely not. This is an additional piece into the tools within the toolbox of Nintex. Excuse me. So as I mentioned about earlier, if you have to do data scraping, data manipulation, you have a bunch of patient financial records that you need to update. Let's say it's over 50,000 records, and you don't want to spend over 3 months going one record after another after another. You can program a robot to do so, right? So everything that you program the bot to do, it will then perform for you. So this is Nintex RPA. This bullseye is your best friend. This is where you program the bot to perform a specific action at your leisure. So if I tell this bot and I point it to opening up Excel, it will open up Excel. If I point it to open up Internet Explorer and go to the patient financial record system and show me everything as far as for all the patients who are outstanding on payments so that we can kick off a workflow to send them out a notice to collect that payment, I can certainly do so as well. So once you've identified what those steps are, it's actually going to list those steps here as well. At the very bottom, you have what's known as the speed. So I can specify how fast I want this bot to run. Now, this bot is ran either on a VM or a desktop. So you can actually, have it on your desktop. You could have it on another computer that is not being used internally, for confidentiality or something like that. So I'm going to up the speed just a little bit for us, just from a time perspective. And I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And I'm going to talk a little about what it's doing on the back end. So when I'm gonna hit play, obviously what it's gonna do is run the script. I specify the speed for us. It's then going to open up Internet Explorer and it's going to open up the vendor onboarding form that is going to actually start filling out for us via looking for one specific record inside of an Excel file. So give it a moment. It's going to open up that form for us, which is just like the form that, it says unavailable. Not sure why, but that's okay. All right, so boo-boo, early in the morning, so you gotta love live technology. The other thing that it's gonna do, since it didn't fill out the form, well, we can certainly go ahead and fill out that form, is it actually is supposed to fill out the form to pull in the one from Orlando. So it's going to pull in this specific one. It showed me that target did not appear. I gotta figure that out, why. I think it has to do with my permissions that I've logged in with, but that's okay, we'll get it all sorted here, no worries. But then, of course, the robot will do everything. And then once everything is completed, it will let you know if there was a target found or not found, things like that. One of the coolest things that you can also do with the bot is say, hey, you know what? I have a report that I have to prepare where I have to do a lot of data scraping manipulation and then send off that report every Friday. And I don't want to do that every Friday or spend 10 hours extra out of my 50-hour work week. So he's now working 60 hours. You can program that bot and you can schedule the bot to run on that Friday and to include send an email action out to your boss or anybody specifically that report needs to go to. It could be patient financial records. How many patients did we onboard or intake for that week, that month, whatever that report is, guess what? The robot can take care of it for you. It's super, super cool, super, super amazing, and very effective and efficient and error proof, which is really, really important and something that we really have to start getting into. And I'll give you an example. Recently, we had someone that came to us at InText, and they wanted to kind of do something where they wanted to use like a bot to help out with their invoicing system. What happened was they had someone that has working invoices for about 18 years of the company. As she was doing, her daily job, never made a mistake. Guess what? Her 18th year, she made a mistake. She missed a zero, which caused them to be very short significantly. So they said they didn't want to fire her because she was close to retirement, which I was very grateful for because everyone needs a job. And so they actually reached out to Nintex, and now they have the bot that is actually sending out their invoices on a every other day basis. So every other day. And so we helped them to kind of get that fully automated, which is really fantastic. The lady actually is now just working on another piece of a process as it relates to organization. So talk about a way to kind of step in and save the day, especially from financial perspective and being able to save on costs as well. Now, the last piece that I want to talk on and mention to you guys about is process optimization, right? As I mentioned about earlier, we have InText Analytics. It's known as Hawkeye, but it will be changing to InText Analytics here very soon. There are 3 actions inside of InText Analytics that you can use. The first one is going to be a beacon. A beacon is really just a variable of measurements that you want to measure. So, for example, I want to measure the patients that come into the system every day. What type of healthcare these patients have, the types of the needs that the patients have as well, right? Injuries, all this great stuff that I want to measure. You can use the beacon action to capture all that variables and measurements. And then you have a beginning beacon and an ending beacon. This will be used when you have different process stages. So as you see here, a vendor intake, vendor onboarding system has 3 different stages. So it starts here, then it goes to document generation, then of course we're sending out for electronic signature. I could use a beginning beacon and ending beacon in each different stage to help me measure how long the process is taking from beginning to end. So that's something really, really cool that we could do here as well. And last but not least, let me show you what a actual completed dashboard could look like. This is InText Analytics. It is ran on Power BI and can connect to any data source. So maybe in your organization, you only use Excel. You maybe use Tableau. You might use SQL Server Reporting Services, also known as SSRS. Whatever you're using, guess what? It can easily connect to. It can show you all of the amazing analytics. So this is everything that I'm capturing, such as the vendors that are ran per week. I can see the vendor levels, approval levels, the vendor engagements. I can see all of the managers who have been assigned to approve off on that vendor. I can see where all of my vendors are located, right? So think about, if you're a global healthcare provider, and you want to know exactly about all your patients, you could pull in a great map to see all of that visualization and even do a drill down specifically. So in Moscow, we have 40 people there or something like that. The next page of the analytics can actually pull in all of the concentration of full-time to vendors and show you all the vendors in a nutshell, shows you a great map as well, and to include some other metrics that we're capturing as well. And this can be embedded onto a website that is, locked down just for specific leaders or executives or whoever needs to see this. It can also be added to a SharePoint page, and you can set up the permissions accordingly so that everyone does not have the visibility into this sensitive information as well. Next step. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, and that will dive us into kind of the next steps of things. So obviously, I know that we've gone through a comprehensive overview of InText. Did my best to definitely try to make it very healthcare centric and kind of get the wheels spinning and what we can do. And I speak just not from the employee side, but also the customer side, because I was in healthcare for 2 years using InText pretty extensively. So I definitely can say it can be done. Think about the process, we can definitely do it. But obviously, if you're looking for professional services, definitely reach out to Judy as well. If you want to know a little bit more about InText, you can definitely visit www.nintext.com/trial, and feel free to give InText a try. Based upon some of the things that you saw today that were really compelling, eye-opening, or very interesting, feel free to reach out as well.